habits that separate the resilient from the rest. So this episode isn't about cliches or surface level hacks. This is about building mental armor, earned, tested, and real habits. If you train, if you're a leader wherever you work, if you practice martial arts, if you seek truth internally or externally, hopefully this one is for you. Let's talk about the first thing, and it is discipline over motivation. And I've said this a lot, but motivation will get you started, but discipline will get you to your goal. We're talking about pursuing and developing daily rituals, habits, over seeking emotional highs, over seeking inspiration. Like I said, it'll get you started, but you need those habits and you need that discipline to get you through to your goal. Some examples here, and I like to invoke these all the time because they're pretty easy and top of mind, but like Navy SEAL morning routines, right? Or Miyamoto Musashi's relentless lifestyle, okay? So let's look at the morning routine thing. And one of the more famous ones, I think if you are into this, Instagram culture at all or whatever, looking at stuff, trying to get inspiration, you'll have found Jocko Willink. And this guy posts, I believe it's 4:30 every morning. He posts a picture of his watch, or most mornings. Every day, no excuses. These famous wristwatch photos are more a proof of his consistency for you to find inspiration to then delve into building your own habits and discipline, not so much about his ego. And I truly believe that. So a takeaway from that is we don't wait to feel ready. We train our mind to act regardless of how we feel ready or not. Okay. And it kind of goes with the whole ethos, right? So, SEALs, whatever, the make your bed talk. You've heard that before, Admiral McRaven. But, they typically train before the sun rises, functional fitness, long rucks, runs, swimming, body weight, drawn out workouts and stuff, up and down the beach. You've heard all that stuff. But that stuff's not just about fitness or showing off for the gram. It's about building their mental toughness and getting that win before the rest of the world is even up. It's such a great feeling to have finished a workout, to start one at 5 a.m. and finish that thing by 5:45 or whatever. And you've done all this hard work. And then you've done it before most people even get out of bed. They haven't even started making their morning coffee, much less finish their morning coffee. Another thing that we can look to the SEALs for some inspiration is or any kind of special forces or even the Marines or whatever. You've seen this stuff on videos where they're the white glove check, making sure their uniforms are pristine. So their uniforms, their gear, living spaces are checked regularly and kept in super precise order. But that's not just a thing that their bosses do to pick on them. It is to teach them to build discipline. And the understanding is that how you do even the smallest things represents how you'll handle even the largest things when everything is in chaos, when everything's going to shit. How you do the small things is how you do everything. That's where that saying comes from. So Musashi's relentless lifestyle, his practice lifestyle, if you've read any of his writings, he has this historically intense self-imposed discipline. So he practiced his techniques thousands of times, often alone, repeating it until he transcended that form, and that's what he's known for, going beyond the traditionally taught forms and creating his own just through his, natural use of things. And there's a whole deep dive into that you could go into, but he also trained using wooden swords against live blades just to sharpen his resolve in what he was doing. And I say train, I'm, this guy actually had real world fights to the death with wooden blades against metal blades, which is a bit insane, but that's why he is Musashi, I guess. And then a lot of times he would remove himself from society so that he could become who he wanted to be, or to follow that path that he wanted to follow, spending years in a cave, meditating, writing, refining his ideas. Late in life, he wrote the Book of Five Rings, which is something I reference a lot, but he didn't write it just for fame. I mean, he wrote it at the end of his life. He knew that he would not live really long enough to see it bring him fame or whatever, but he did it as a final act of discipline, codifying his lessons that he lived and taught every day up until his death. And that's really why he wrote that. He wrote that as really as a thing to give to the universe, which is beautiful. So Jocko doesn't just post his 4:30 a.m. watch pictures for likes on Instagram. He does it to sharpen his edge, to retain his truth. Musashi didn't wait for the perfect moment to write down his legacy. He trained in the mud and blood for decades before he even thought about or taught a word, pursuing discipline over motivation, over discipline over reward. Seeking voluntary hardship is a thing. Comfort kills resilience. Okay, so things like cold showers, hard workouts, fasting, training through being exhausted. Those aren't things you do just to put out on the internet to show the world how tough you are. Those are those things that you do to use as tools and stepping stones for yourself. Like David Goggins says, building calluses for your mind. So let's talk about that. Who's going to carry the boat, son? If you've read his book, David Goggins, he's got a couple, but I think the one is You Can't Hurt Me or something like that. It's a really good one. Actually, the audiobook is the best version because I don't think he reads it himself, but in between the chapters are like little podcast episodes where he's talking to someone else about the chapter, and it's pretty good stuff. Take him or leave him. During a brutal SEAL evolution, that's what they call the sections where they work on stuff. And this one, if you're a fan of Navy SEAL training culture, I'm into it and have been for years. But there's a particular part they call surf torture, and Goggins wrote he was pushed to his edge. Right, instructors had the class locked in the freezing surf, barely able to breathe in the water, and when most men were collapsing and quitting, Goggins started yelling, "Who's going to carry the boats?" He wasn't necessarily talking to everyone else. He was talking to himself. And then he began to use that as his war cry to sort of trigger him to push deeper when his body said no. Goggins didn't just embrace the pain, he learned to weaponize it. Okay? So, the idea of voluntary hardship isn't about masochism. It's about choosing to struggle on your own terms. So when life forces it on you, you've already trained yourself to work through the chaos, right? So we seek it out before it is imparted on top of us, right? Musashi's well known for essentially putting himself into a homeless situation. Musashi's Japan's greatest swordsman. He lived like a monk, crossed with a mercenary. He often refused food and shelter and comfort. He slept on the ground, in caves, whatever, believing that comfort made the warrior weak. There's even a story that before major duels, he deliberately arrived late, dirty, gross, and exhausted to prove that mastery wasn't about appearance or bravado, but it was about mental preparation in his mindset. See, to Musashi, hardship wasn't a punishment. It was his filter for strength to the world, to teach, to prove to himself that it could be done. So that unbreakable mind is forged in discomfort. Luxury dulls that edge, and hardship sharpens it. That's a really hard thing to do. I struggle with that because life is pretty nice. We have the internet, we have our coffee, and it's hard to look to the difficult things as just training and not just as something to overcome. So this idea that you cannot improve what you ignore, right? So through tools like journaling, Japanese term Naikan, which I'm going to do another podcast about, self-reflection, end of day recaps, after action reports. Aaron and I talk about that all the time on the show. Owning your actions, your reactions, trying to own your own mindset and how your outlook on the world is something you can control and not just something that is a innate reaction. Those are all very important. It's all very important to try to work on those things. So there's a framework you can use if you are looking to do, after action reviews on your day or daily reflection journals or whatever. I love these 3 questions. What did I receive? What did I give? What trouble did I cause? Those are ways to really help build self-awareness. What did I receive? What did I give? And what trouble did I cause? Who helped me? Who did I help? And who did I screw up? Or what did I screw up? Pretty good little filters. I would recommend a very minimal notebook, something like, field notes or whatever, blank. It doesn't have to be super fancy. I personally don't like apps. I like the analog nature of writing something down. I think it really helps me retain things. Anytime I write anything into the computer or the phone or whatever, I immediately forget them. I think it's just, the way I was raised and my Gen X mindset. I'm just not digital first in my brain, I guess. So here's something that we can do. We can, for this, I'll put this in the post. This is something, it's sort of like a mantra you can use, and I will read it out. Your daily self-reflection, self-awareness prompt or reading or whatever. So, warriors don't just train the body, they train the mind. And that starts with reflection, not once a year, not when you burn out, every damn day. Before you go to sleep, ask yourself, what did I give today? What did I receive? What trouble did I cause? These 3 questions come from Naikan. It's a Japanese method of self-reflection used by monks, martial artists. It's not about guilt. It's about awareness, about your ownership of your mindset, okay? Look, in quotes, look. The undisciplined mind forgets. It lies. It justifies. But a warrior who reflects daily becomes sharper, calmer, and more accountable. I don't care if it's a notebook, a voice memo, a scratched up note card on your nightstand. Make a reflection a non-negotiable habit. Because if you don't inspect your mind, you'll never upgrade. Noise is the enemy of clarity. So another thing to work on, strategic disconnection, okay? Cut the digital noise, okay? Cut down on the news consumption, doom scrolling, social comparison, ination, the Instagramming, the TikToking. All that shit is fake. None of that's real. None of that is their real self. It is what has been edited and put in front of you. That includes the news. It includes good news, bad news. It includes looking at your neighbor's garden, okay? Regular digital detox blocks, okay? 1 hour a day, 1 day a week. Whatever. Quiet is where strategy is born, especially for warriors, okay? Talk about your own week without social media, okay? When you're journaling or when you're thinking about it, try to think about those things that you did that did not involve the internet in some way, okay? At one point in time, a couple of years ago, I did a 7-day martial arts test, okay, where we went out and we camped for 7 days and nights and did not take our phone. The not taking the phone was not the entire purpose, but it was a sub part of the whole thing. But I remember distinctly that it took me a good 3 days or so to stop trying to check my phone for information. I would find myself wanting to get my phone to check what the weather was like, even though I was like out in it. I don't think we realize just how wired we are into that stuff, how deeply that stuff has dug into our brains. And I don't think it's safe. I don't think it's good, because distraction is the enemy of clarity, right? You can't sharpen your sword in a hurricane. And yet most people live in one daily. It's a digital hurricane, right? It's a storm of alerts, opinions, fake urgency, dopamine bait. To be a true warrior, you need to think differently. We need to learn to disconnect. We need to learn that those things are tools, not just things that we can't control that suck us in, right? Distraction is the enemy of clarity. Look at any elite performer, right? Military leaders, athletes, artists. They all carve out time to think, to breathe, to listen to their own damn voice instead of what the algorithm produces as a voice, right? So back to the 1 hour a day, 1 day a week, whatever. A little challenge. 1 hour a day, no phone, no notifications. I mean, spend it with another human, right? Go for a walk and don't look at it. 1 day a week, minimal digital. No social media, no unnecessary email, no consumption of bullshit on the internet. Try it. 1 weekend a month. No tech. Except for if you need a map to go somewhere, or you have to call someone because you need to check in, or you need something, or they call you. Minimal tech. And use that time to reflect, to read, to train, to build your mind. Because if your mind isn't always plugged in, it will never reboot itself. And a tired mind makes weak decisions, okay? Strategic disconnection is not a luxury. It's battlefield preparation, okay, is necessary. So the brain needs boredom. Science backs this, okay? Moments of boredom increase creativity, problem-solving ability, And constant stimulation reduces your ability to do this and focus. I've noticed this in myself when I've watched it. I've, you know, gotten into one of those ruts where I've spent like 45 minutes to an hour just looking at dumb crap on the internet, and then I'm like numb, like my brain doesn't work right. I know this, and yet sometimes I still fall into it. Digital noise is mental clutter. Digital noise creates mental clutter. You don't need to react to every notification. Most of it's junk. And we all know junk in equals junk out, right? Food, alcohol, crappy people produces junky outputs, right? The same thing is with what we consume mentally. Junk in, junk out, okay? You need to work to create quiet zones. So no phone in the bed, you know? Like that is something that I do. I do not bring that phone into the bed. I actually have a analog alarm clock that shows the time on the wall. It's got like a laser thing and it puts the time up on the wall. I absolutely do not want to look at my phone or an iPad or whatever when I'm laying there before I go to bed. No devices when you eat. I desperately try to do that. No phone on the table when I'm eating. Holy crap. And practicing a weekly digital sabbatical, like we talked about, an hour a week, 1 weekend a month, whatever you can pull. They're training drills, right? That's what that is. That hour a day is training. Think of it that way. So like we read with Marcus Aurelius, to bring in the Stoic angle, if you are disturbed by anything external, the path is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Think about that. If anything external is bothering you, it's not because of that thing. It's because the way you're reacting to it. It's because your expectations of it, your fear of it, whatever it is. It is not the thing your interpretation is. So that's why Jocko is up at 4:30 in the morning. There's no one around to bother him. That's why Musashi went and lived in the woods and slept in caves so he could master his craft away from everyone else. So, all right, warriors, here's your challenge. For the next 4 weeks, please try a tech-free Sunday. Okay? No social media, no scrolling, no digital junk food. Phone stays away. Minimal tech. If someone calls you or you need a map, right? Use it only when absolutely necessary, not for entertainment, not for escape from the day. Instead, when you feel that need, I want you to journal or train, go take a walk the dog, like whatever. Sit quietly, go outside and reflect. Be present with your people. Sit in boredom. Okay? Do those things instead. That's where you find clarity. Okay? And then at the end of the day, track your mental clarity in one sentence. How did you feel? What did you notice? What pulled at you the most? Something. Do that for 4 Sundays, and I guarantee you'll be sharper, calmer, more grounded. This is how warriors unplug from the world so they can re-enter it with the power they need. We can't do it alone. If you're listening this far in, thank you. I've found my own tribe as well with some of these mentors and things. So, lone wolves die and the pack survives. Okay, I don't know who said that, but I like it. So, mentors, training partners, accountability groups, let me be those things with you here. I want to support you instead of enable you, okay? So let us be your tribe, you know? Tell me, message me, email me, whatever. Let me know how that goes. So everything we talked about, including the challenge, discipline over motivation, voluntary hardship, self-reflection, strategic disconnection. Okay? Those are all things that we have to train as warriors. It's not easy. It's incredibly difficult, but so important, especially today. Like there's so much negativity, like every single day. There's so much negativity coming at you. You have to find a way. You have to find a way to prepare your mind through this stuff. Otherwise, you're going to let it get to you. I know someone right now that they were coming to the gym, and I know exactly why they haven't been to the gym since the beginning of the year, and it's 4 or 5 months, and I think I know why. I think it's because they're letting the world get to them. They're letting the world crush them. They can't get over the just amount of negativity that comes at them, that they just get sucked into it. And it's killed any kind of motivation, which in turn has killed any kind of habits that they had built over time. They just let it get to them. So for the love of God, start doing some mental training. Discipline over motivation. Find voluntary hardship. Do hard things. Self-reflection. Journal, please. Strategic disconnection. Find time to get off that goddamn phone. Okay? Pick one of the 5. Track it for 30 days. Forge your mind. And let me know how it goes.